Battlefield 1, a game that has divided opinion within the community ever since its release, and to be honest hasn't really lived up to the expectations that I expected from a Battlefield game. Now before this video gets started, I would just like to put a disclaimer that I'm not the biggest hater in the world of Battlefield 1, neither am I its greatest supporter. I'm kind of stuck in the middle between it being an okay game and a game that I'm not really going to play too much anymore. I know people at either side of the argument, so I'm not going to try and convince people one way or the other. This is strictly just an opinion, but it would be nice to see some arguments, possibly keep it clean down in the comments and see what people think about the game this far into its life. It is kind of a turning point for the game as well, seeming as though we've got the CTE now, we've had a couple of patches, and of course the DLC is starting to drop. This is the point in the game's life where you expect it to really thrive if it's a proper game. To be honest, the numbers aren't too bad, but that's not something I'm really going to look at in this video. This is going to be more of an opinion on why I think Battlefield 1 isn't as good as previous Battlefield games, in my opinion, and what I think they got wrong and could really do with putting right in an upcoming patch, or even concentrate on in the new Battlefield game, which we will no doubt start seeing leaks for in the upcoming year. Now first of all, Battlefield 1 is quite possibly the best looking game that I've ever seen. It is absolutely beautiful, especially on PC when you turn the settings up. It might not be the best running game. I think I've struggled for frames a lot of the time and had to turn settings down compared to other BF games, but again, it's not a massive problem and it's something that can be alleviated. That being said, I don't really look for graphics in a game, especially a first-person shooter that hopefully is going to rely on some sort of skill in order to play. A lot of people in Battlefield 4 turn their visual settings all the way down in order to get a really high FPS and make targets stick out more clearly. Now in BF1 this isn't really the case. A lot of people are praising the aesthetic value of the game, but for me that isn't really something that should be considered as to whether this game will be a great or not. On the surface, Battlefield 1 seems to be pretty nice, but for me there is a distinct lack of weapons customization and of course terrible balance. Now I'm not saying that there should be lots of different weapons like we had in BF4 and just saturate the hell out of the game with gadgets, but what I am saying is it would be nice to have some sort of option for when you've played your first 50 hours, you've used pretty much every gun there is, and you just want to start changing things up. I think the battle pack system is absolutely terrible. The fact you have to pay or get lucky in order to unlock a skin, and the fact they're so rare and you don't even get a skin for the gun that you've been using is kind of ridiculous, but again, not something I can hate a game for because that is just aesthetics and I'm not really too bothered. What would be nice is the option to change different attachments on a weapon like in BF4, and I do understand the reason they've changed it in BF1 so you have a weapon that is good for a particular purpose. Say the MP18 and the 3 different variants of it, they're all good at one specific thing, or maybe a bit of overlap, but you see what I'm getting at. You're not going to have a gun that has the incorrect attachments on it. We go back to level cap and how he used to recommend things and how they literally made no sense at all and were often debunked by people like Marble Duck, but even so, it would be nice if I could change some different attachments and it would give me advice on what is better for a certain situation. I did mention before balance in Battlefield 1. Now I don't know if you've ever been on a server, but quite often you'll be dumped into a server that either has 5 players on one team and 20 on the other, or just no one on it at all. I feel that the balance is atrocious. There isn't even an in-game balancer, and the fact it hasn't been introduced in a patch is pretty disappointing. Again, another reason why this game wasn't played for more than 100 hours by people like myself. In addition to that, the UI that the game employs is atrocious. It is such a joke that you can't even join your friends from Origin. Again, I think they've tried to fix this multiple times, but I still have the issue. The party system was a joke on release, it's still not great. And the fact that you haven't got a battle log like you had in Battlefield 4 that worked absolutely perfectly for PC players, albeit with a couple of little issues that could be fixed with smart port forwarding and little quick fixes like that. Why not just fix that system and keep it? They've introduced the proper UI for BF4 right now, and I've downloaded it, I've tried to use it, and again, it is a bit of a mess. You can't even look at servers like you can with Battlelog to check who's on there. It's really difficult to join friends, to see what the server's doing, see all the stats of the server. Is it quick spawn vehicles? How many people are on the server? Is it balanced? Have you got a hacker on the server? Have you got someone who's really, really good in a plane who's just farming everybody and you think, well, I don't want to join that because that won't be fun. Why they don't have that in the Battlefield 1 game, I have no idea, and I think it's quite rude that they didn't implement the Battlefield 4 battle log settings that have worked so well just the key aspects of it. There is still time for them to do this, but they're obviously not going to because of the casual feel that they're trying to replicate from console over to PC. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but you have to cater for both audiences, and in this instance, they're really not doing so. On to map design in Battlefield 1. Obviously, as a big Battlefield 4 player, I know all about poor map design. BF4 was plagued with terrible maps, all the way from the big open maps like Silk Road, although people enjoyed them, to DLC maps like Hangar 21 and Nansha Strike. Some of these maps are nice and they do cater for a different playstyle, maybe some long range tanking if that's what you want to do. If you're a jet pilot, maybe that's something you want, or if you're a sniper, possibly Silk Road could be the map for you. For me though, there's one thing that Battlefield games have missed, and that is good cover. Hard cover that can be employed tactically, that can protect you from grenades, spam and all the rest of it. Very few maps in Battlefield 1 actually offer this, and I'd say Amiens is the only vanilla map that really succeeds at creating a balanced map with lots of cover, lots of different flanking routes and flags that can be contested from many different angles without you getting spammed by something. I think the lack of planes on that map and the fact there is the train behemoth and not an airship behemoth does help in that matter, but even so I think most people will agree with me in the comments that that map is fantastic compared to the others. Infantry only maps like Argonne Forest, I personally quite like that map, I think it works, but this leads me on to the next point. They are plagued by a major issue, and that is grenade spam. Even after the recent updates, DICE seem to be absolutely fixated with grenades. Grenade replenishment, what a ridiculous idea. Why would you want more grenades in a game that's already got a really high grenade and gadget kill percentage rate? It just destroys the feel of the game. Now I know a lot of people think it's World War I, it's realistic, you've got grenades, this is how it was, gas grenades, explosions, blah blah blah. I don't play the game for it to be realistic. I don't want a realistic World War I shooter, because if I did, I'd be playing something else. I want something that is fun to play, fast paced, lots of run and gun shooting, decent vehicles, large scale warfare, and of course plenty of replayability. The meta in BF1 at the minute is to spawn in, throw all your grenades, run at a point, try and kill somebody, and eventually either get bayoneted or grenaded yourself. The bayonet being something else that I'm not even going to go into in this video, but the fact it's in the game is a complete and utter joke. The melee system, in fact, is a complete and utter joke in BF1. That said, it was pretty awful in BF4 as well. The way I'd suggest fixing this in BF1 is just remove the amount of grenades you have. For example, if you're on an infantry only map, why the hell do you need anti-tank grenades? Don't get me wrong, I think they're quite cool against tanks, the fact that you don't have RPGs and stuff, you need to be using grenades, it changes the dynamic a little bit. But really, anti-tank grenades on Argonne Forest? I just think that's absolutely ludicrous. The fact that you can spawn in with gas grenades, anti-tank grenades, dynamite and all the rest of it just means, I was working it out the other day, in a squad you can throw 15 grenades if you all spawn together and launch them at a flag. 15 grenades, and with the splash damage and damage in general against infantry being a lot higher than other Battlefield games, you're often getting kills, which is an incentive to spam more grenades. With the replenishment of grenades, and of course you can get supports that can replenish their own grenades, I really don't see the point in this. It's a complete move away from what I love in Battlefield and increases spam, something that I am absolutely certain ruins the gaming experience. Now, I'm not saying completely remove grenades from the game, I'm just saying they need to be changed, and something that really does stick out to me is the fact that you can throw a grenade instantly while you're almost in full sprint. That makes them less tactical. If you have to get behind a bit of cover and maybe take a second to throw your grenade, like in BF4, and maybe you only have one grenade and you have to be tactical with it, then you're going to think, I'm not just going to launch them as soon as I spawn, and that way it removes the issue. If you've ever played one of the new game modes, especially Fort Vaux, it ruins the experience because every time you want to push a corner, it's like the locker choke point on BF4. There's just grenades flying everywhere, you can't move, the game's static, and it's just not fun. And people are getting a 1 KD because they're throwing grenades, then they're getting killed by a grenade. Rinse and repeat. I'm not going to comment on the sniping in Battlefield 1 or even the gunplay because I do feel like it is skilled and it is fairly decent. Onto the vehicles in Battlefield 1. Now this is something that I'm quite informed about because I have played in the tanks and the planes a fair bit on BF1. Of course I've played in them for hundreds and hundreds of hours on BF4. and I've played in them quite a bit on BF3 as well. Now Battlefield 4 did move away to be slightly more casual in terms of tanking compared to BF3. The fact that the gadgets have gone through the roof, lock-ons, MBT laws, you name it, they put it into the game. It kind of meant that it was a little less tactical and more spammy. Now you're given countermeasures in BF4 to deal with lock-ons, so if that's something you're struggling with, then obviously you're not using your countermeasures correctly. But of course you are dealt a bad hand every so often with APS failing or smoke not doing the job properly or something like that. MBT laws go through APS for example, which is a massive issue, but it's something that you can deal with, and on a map such as Zavod, which in my opinion is the best vanilla tank map on the game because of the cover, the way the flags are laid out, even flag numbers, the different points that you can hide behind, the ways of blocking line of sights, the flanking routes, it is just the best map for tanking. You can employ these different tactics to get away from things. In BF1 there is no such thing. Apart from Amiens, which of course is a fairly decent map for cover, you literally are offered no protection from planes, from bombers, from behemoths, from grenades, from rocket guns, from K-bullets, whatever other spam that they want to throw at you, you pretty much have no way of dealing with it. Of course you have your quick repair, and then if you really want to you can get out of your tank and repair it, but the animation of course ruins that experience. You are kind of stuck in a position where you have to camp. Now you've probably seen this a lot on the bigger maps, people taking the artillery truck, camping on the side of the hill and going on a massive 50 kill streak because all they've done is shoot at range. Whenever they get spotted they move to another spot. This is complete and utter rubbish. No one wants a game where you take a tank and you camp. As a big tanker myself, I'd prefer a game where the tanks possibly are slower because obviously it's the First World War, but they're something that can get onto a flag, they can cap an objective, they are vulnerable, but they're a little stronger and they're used far more tactically. Another issue is the skill limit of the vehicles. The fact that you can just camp on a hill, as I said before, makes you look like a god, and the explosive rounds of the planes and maybe of the flanker tank and the splash damage are also a big problem. If you're in a plane and you see a group of enemies, you can fly at them roughly aiming your primary gun, strafe them, kill a load of them because of splash damage, and then drop all your grenades, similar to a JDAM, again splash damage getting you the kills. This means you can go on big kill streaks. I've done a couple of them myself. I'm not skilled in the plane, it's just the skill limit has been dropped so significantly. There's no speed control, there's no issues like that. The fact that you don't have health regen in the planes as well is a massive issue. You have to go out of the map and replenish them yourself, and there's also the issue that you can't directly engage an AA gun because of the way it affects your plane and rips off parts of the wings, so you're less agile. Again, a massive issue. Going back to what they had in BF3 and BF4 with the vehicles would be greatly received in my opinion, but again I don't think they will because it's a console friendly idea with the way they have it set up at the minute, and it works for the casual player who just wants to take a tank and go on a 5 kill streak. On to rented servers in Battlefield 1. Why on earth, after several patches, do they still not have password protected servers? For me, this is a complete kick in the teeth for the competitive community. Even with a game that might not be so competitively minded, you can't remove that option for people who want to rent a server and have an 8v8 game mode or friendly scrim with another team. I really don't see why they haven't implemented this, and I feel quite insulted that the conversation between DICE and the community has been so broken up. An issue I find as well when I read through the forums looking at why people hate BF1 and why people love BF1 is down to personal experience. A lot of people say, oh, I love the game because I played this and I'm good at it, or I hate the game because I played this and I'm bad at it. Now I might be in the same boat in BF1, maybe I haven't played it enough and maybe I don't understand what's going on and I'm not really getting the whole experience correctly. But I do feel like the game is lacking and it really needs something to bring it up to a standard where I'm willing to put more time into it. I'm not just wanting to play 2 or 3 games a week. I want a game that I can sink over 1,000 hours into like I did with Battlefield 4 and I'm still playing 3 or 4 years after it's released. I don't think we're going to get that with BF1 and I feel like I've kind of been shammed a bit with the hype machine that surrounds games these days. You'll again see it with upcoming DLCs. They will spam all sorts of hype to try and sell as many copies as possible, but the same old issues will come back. Maybe I'm wrong, and hopefully I am, but I do feel as if DICE have gone in completely the wrong direction with BF1, and hopefully tried to bring it back to its roots in the next title. If you do have the same opinion, or maybe a slightly different opinion to me, I'd love to hear it down in the comments. Again, this is not all straight fact, this is my opinion of the game. and it's always nice to hear what other people think of it. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll catch you in the next video.